Now that we've gotten a good look at how to build strokes in the program, let's take a look at the fill side of things. A good tool to start with for that would be the paint bucket tool. Now our fill also has a color associated with it. Right now mine is set to black, but I can just click on that color chip and choose another color. So I'll choose blue here. And if I click with the paint bucket, I should be able to fill up an object. What I'm looking for